want to start with what Pelé and his friends actually played with as kids, because it's very important. We started to spend more and more time dreaming about football and when we could next get to play. We had no kit, of course, not even a ball, and we had to make do with stuffing paper or rags into a sock or stocking, shaping it as best we could into a sphere and then tying it with a string. So they're playing with a ball made of stockings. Think about what it's like to control something like that, something that's like lopsided, comes out of the air at the wrong angle and it's way too light when you have to kick it around. So, and then when you want it to go where you want it to go, you have to be more precise than any kid playing with an actual proper football. And then it comes to this idea that like the thing that greatest athletes don't have is what made them. So he didn't have a proper football, so you had to make do with anything else. I think that develops passion. To go out of your way and play with something that's obviously not as enjoyable as the real thing, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And it reminded me of Maradona as well when I heard this. We would always be there in the Potrero waste ground, running after the ball. Saturdays and Sundays were spent like that all day long. Weekdays too, but only from 5 o'clock because during the day I had to go to school. Everything I did, every step I took was because of the ball. If the torta sent me on an errand, I would take with me anything that resembled a ball. It could be an orange or scrumpled up paper or cloths, and I would go up the steps onto the bridge that crossed the railway, hopping on one foot, the right one, and taking whatever it was on the left. Tack, tack, tack. That's how I walked to school as well. So Maradona's walking to school, hopping on one foot with an orange, doing keepy uppies. Pelé's and Balro's playing with a ball that's made out of a sock. And these are two of the greatest footballers in history that we're talking about, and they're growing up doing this thing every day for years before they're known as great footballers. And so most kids, if they want to play football and they don't have a kit, they just keep playing. But Pelé was a little bit different. He said this: "I was a restless creative boy. What I really wanted was to have a club of our own. Playing outside the house was great, but I yearned to do it properly, to emulate my father and the other players we saw on the training which abutted the end of the street. This meant we'd have to buy some proper kit. Shirts, shorts, boots, socks, a ball. But what about the money? We'd have to get a hold of some." So they wanted to create their own club, they needed money. Pelé's only 11 years old, maybe 12 years, and they've got nothing. And then they figure out how to make some. And they're quite creative actually with the ideas that they come out with. A kid called Z Porto had the brainwave. He suggested that we sell peanuts at the door to the circus and the cinema. The first problem, where would we get the peanuts? Z Porto smiled and told us his delinquent idea: "We'll nick them from the Sorocabana stores." This was a kind of warehouse down by the railway. There were always workers down there and the plan was risky. So this is what happened. This is the operation played out. I almost died of fright as I made my way in. We carried old bowls, sieves, an old bucket to get the peanuts in. We slit some of the sacks. They were huge. The peanuts came spilling out in a flood and we gathered them up as fast as we could. We filled our pockets too and put still more in our shirts and passed them out to the others waiting outside the wagon. And then it was done. We'd got away with it and ran off laughing at our nerves and our relief. After our great victory, which had held me in a cold sweat throughout, our dream was becoming a reality. We toasted the peanuts and went off to sell them. Soon we had money for shirts. Well, for vests, there wasn't that much money. We bought shorts too. So stealing isn't really the point. The point is the urgency that most kids in that situation just play without a club because they've got no money. But Pelé built his own at 11 years old by stealing peanuts out of a train. And I keep noticing this with every legend. They're not all stealing peanuts out of a train, but they're all trying to figure out their own way of doing things, of pursuing their passion when nobody's watching. And they don't wait to be picked or they don't wait to be helped. They just start.